Alright, we're going to go ahead and start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening and the return of our beloved 12th Imam, please recite another loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. I hope everyone is doing well, inshallah, and hopefully this week has been a good week. Today, inshallah, we'll continue our talk as we normally do Thursday nights on the topic of Hadith. If you remember last week, we talked about Hadith Unwan al-Basri because it was coinciding with the shahadat of our beloved 6th Imam, Ja'far ibn Muhammad salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. We started that topic. We did not have an opportunity to end the Hadith that we were going through, and therefore tonight, inshallah, we will be discussing the continuation of the Hadith of Unwan al-Basri. Before we do that, there are two things that I need to mention, inshallah, before we actually get into that. The first is that because we passed the wiladat of our beloved Lady Ma'asuma salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha, I will be talking about her for very briefly for the first 10 minutes of tonight's session, and then afterwards we will move on to the continuation of Hadith Unwan al-Basri. The second point that I wanted to mention is that inshallah next Thursday, alhamdulillah, we're honored to have Sayyid Asad Jafri from Toronto. He is well known in the Dallas community as well as many other communities. Inshallah, we are honored to have him, and he will be addressing the Dallas community on the wiladat of Imam al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. So as you know, the wiladat of the 8th Imam is coming up, and Thursday night next week, 8 o'clock, inshallah, will be his lecture, and inshallah everyone will tune in and benefit from his wisdom and from his knowledge. So Lady Fatima Ma'asuma is a character and an individual that has a very special place in the hearts of the Shia around the world. When you look at her life and when you look at her biography, unfortunately, there isn't too much information that has been recorded of her life. There are guesses as to when she was born, when she passed away, and what happened throughout her life, but we don't know too much as you would know, for example, when it comes to our Imams, or at least some of our Imams. Yes, we do know that she did not live a very long life. We know that she was born in Medina. We know that she was given the title Ma'asuma, and some have also given her the title Karima, the generous one, and this has other reasons that I don't want to go into as of right now. But the title Ma'asuma is given to her through a hadith. Even though we don't know much about the life of Lady Ma'asuma, and of course we know some parts, and I'll discuss those in just a second, even though we don't know too much about her life and the details of what happened to her while she was alive, you find that within the Shia school of thought, she holds a high status. And the reason why she holds a high status, it's not just coincidence, and it's not just luck, and it's not just that it happened to be so. It's the fact that 3 different Imams have encouraged people to go and visit her grave and go and visit her shrine. Imam al-Sadiq has done so, Imam al-Rida has done so, and Imam al-Jawad has also done so. And today, when we go through the ziyarat that is recited when someone goes to do a ziyarat and visit the grave of Lady Ma'asuma, we'll discuss the hadith, and that hadith is narrated from the 8th Imam, in which he told one of his companions that when you go and you visit the grave of my sister, this is what you're supposed to say. And when you take a look at the ziyarat and what you're supposed to mention in the ziyarat, what you find is that there are certain lines in the ziyarat that really show you the high level and the high status of Lady Ma'asuma salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. So we're going to discuss that in just a second. So we know that she was born in Medina and that she was living in Medina. And we know that Imam al-Rida was forced out of the city of Medina, and he was forced to move from Medina, which was in, in today's Saudi Arabia, or we should just say Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula. He was moved all the way from there past Iraq all the way till northeast today's Iran, which is Khurasan, which is a very far away from Medina. And what we also know from history, and if you remember, we discussed this when we were discussing the biography of Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, the 8th Imam. What we know is that the Imam, in an effort to show that him going from Medina to Khurasan was not something that he did in a voluntary fashion, in an effort to make this clear, he did not take any of his family members with him. That's why you read in history, even his own son did not go with him. Imam al-Jawad was not with Imam al-Rida when he was in Khurasan. And this is why people were surprised when Imam al-Jawad showed up to actually do the ghusl, to actually pray upon the body of his father in Khurasan. The reason for that is because Imam al-Jawad was not there to begin with. Similar to this, the sister of Imam al-Rida, who's also part of his family, also did not go with him when Imam al-Rida went to Khurasan. Therefore, she was also in the city of Medina. After a while, Lady Ma'suma leaves the city of Medina and moves towards Khurasan to go and visit her brother. And on the way, we know from history that she gets sick. And when she gets sick, her final destination is what we know today of as the city of Qum. And that's where she settles down. And that's where, after a little bit of time, she passes away. So this is what we understand. Now, when you look at the ahadith, like I said, the fact that she has a high status, she has a lofty status, she's very respectable amongst the Ahlul Bayt, it's not a coincidence. And you understand this from two different points. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, 3 different imams have encouraged their followers and their ashab to do ziyarah of Lady Ma'suma, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha. That's number 1. Number 2, you also find that there is no other individual who is not an imam or a prophet who has this much emphasis on visiting their shrine and has a specific ziyarat. You know, these ziyarats that we mention, when it comes to the imams, these ziyarats are specific. They are khas, right? They are set in such a way and they are mentioned in such a way where they are specific to the individual that you are visiting. When you visit Imam al-Hussein, the ziyarat is very specific to Imam al-Hussein. When you visit Imam al-Rida, salawatullahi alayhi, the ziyarat is specific to him. And then sometimes you will have general ziyarats as well. You will have general ways of doing ziyarat of an imam. Ziyarat Aminullah, for example, would be an example of this, where it is recommended to be mentioned at any haram of any ma'asum, at the shrine or grave of any ma'asum. It is recommended to recite this ziyarat and other ziyarats that we have as well. But then when it comes to specific ziyarats for individuals who are not ma'asum, they are not infallible in the formal sense of the word, you don't find them. However, you do find this with Lady Ma'suma. And this we are taking from a famous hadith from Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi alayhi, in which the 6th Imam, he told one of his companions, or forgive me, the 8th Imam, he told one of his companions, he says, Inna lana ya Sa'd, indakum lana qabrun. He said, Sa'd, that was the name of his companion. He said, let me tell you something, that in where you guys are, there is a grave for us where you are. And he said, which grave are you talking about? Are you talking about the grave of Ma'suma? He said, yes, the grave of Ma'suma. And then the 8th Imam says, he says, when you go to that grave, then speak to Lady Ma'suma, or I should say, do ziyarat of Lady Ma'suma in the following manner. And he starts out like this, Assalamu alayki ya Adama Safwatillah. And the ziyarat is not too much of a lengthy one, but it's a mid-size one, I would say. But I want to focus on these lines. In the middle of the ziyarat, you read this. Arrafallahu baynana wa baynakum fil jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala join us and reconnect us in heaven. Wa hasharana fi zumratikum. And may Allah have us gather together. He's praying that we would be with Lady Ma'suma in heaven. وَأَوْرَدَنَا حَوْضَ نَبِيَّكُمْ, and may we also be a part of those who enter upon the hawd of the Prophet. This is Hawd al-Kawthar. Hawd al-Kawthar is a pool of water that the Prophet and Ali ibn Abi Talib take from that, and they quench the thirst of those who are entering into heaven. And there is a specific pleasure mentioned for it, and it's referred to in a number of our ahadith. The dua and the ziyarat is saying that we hope to be with you when we enter upon the Hawd of Kawthar. And then the ziyarat says this: Ya Fatimatu, ishfa'i li fil jannah. O Fatima, do shafa'at for me. Intercede on my behalf in heaven. فَإِنَّ لَكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ شَأْنًا مِنَ الشَّأْنِ, because you have a very special status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now bear in mind, this is Imam al-Rida speaking of who? Speaking of his sister. Therefore, this is coming from a ma'asum. The ma'asum is saying that when you go to do ziyarat of my sister, who is not ma'asum in the formal sense, in the sense of her being like an imam or like a prophet, although she may have never committed a sin. But ma'asum in the formal sense of the word, even though she is not ma'asum, when you go and do ziyarat, don't just go and do a general ziyarat. No, this is the way you need to address her. Now, having said that, I also want to mention this, and this is of course one of those stories and one of those the tales that is well known in our books, and our scholars have spoken about this as well, that Mullah Sadra, the famous philosopher, and when I say famous philosopher, that's really, really doing injustice to how great of a scholar he was. He used to live in a city near the city of Qom. It's called the city of Kahak, which is not really a city, I should say more so a village. But he says himself that when he was thinking, and he used to sit days and days and contemplate and think and ponder and try to solve the philosophical issues and problems that he was dealing with. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless his soul. The type of contribution that someone like Mullah Sadra made, you will find very little individuals in the history of the science of philosophy that they made towards the science, or any science if you think about it. He was a very, very great scholar of ours. He says, as I used to sit there and think and ponder on these philosophical problems that I was trying to solve, he says, whenever I ran into a problem, I would walk all the way from Kahak to Qom. The distance between these two, if you wanted to drive from one to another, which, for those who have studied in Qom, they know, you might have done this trip a number of times. There's probably an hour-long trip, maybe less. But on foot, it's going to be much, much longer than that. Mullah Sadra says, out of respect, I would walk towards the city of Qom, and I would do ziyarat of the grave of Lady Ma'suma, and I would come back, and when I would come back, my philosophical issue, the philosophical problem, the conundrum, the dilemma, whatever it was that I was dealing with, it would be solved. And this shows, therefore, that it wasn't just a person of spirituality who would come and benefit from Lady Ma'suma. Also, a person of knowledge, a person of science will also benefit from the presence of Lady Ma'suma salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. So these are just some of the stories that we know about her presence there. And of course, there are many more as well. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that inshallah we can follow in her footsteps, and that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us and grants us the tawfiq of doing ziyarat of her grave, inshallah. All right. Moving on to the topic that we were discussing. The hadith of Unwan al-Basri is what we were discussing. If you remember last Thursday we said that Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, he is known as a man of knowledge. Anywhere you go, whether you are talking about the Shia school of thought or the Sunni school of thought, everybody knows him as a man of knowledge. That's why Abu Hanifa, in his famous lines, he says that I saw nobody who was as knowledgeable as Ja'far ibn Muhammad. And then we also said that they were atheists. They were individuals who did not believe in any of the things that the sixth Imam believed in. And they also admitted and confessed to the great knowledge that Ja'far ibn Muhammad carried with himself. However, we said that as much as he is seen as a man of knowledge, he is not seen to the same extent as a man of spirituality. But we know that Imam is not just a man of knowledge, he is a man of spirituality. In fact, you might say he is a man of spirituality first before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him the great knowledge that he is going to have. Okay. So as a man of spirituality, not many people would come to benefit from Ja'far ibn Muhammad. However, you do find in history certain instances where the sixth Imam would show this side of himself to individuals who may have not even seen him necessarily as an Imam. And it seems as though this hadith and this individual that we are speaking of, Unwan al-Basri, it seems as though he falls in this category as well. It seems as though he doesn't see Ja'far ibn Muhammad as an Imam to begin with either. He sees him as a knowledgeable individual and maybe a little bit of a spiritual master as well. But he doesn't necessarily see him as an Imam. Nonetheless, as we covered the story in the previous last Thursday, Unwan al-Basri, he says, I used to go and sit in the classes and the sessions of Malik ibn Anas, the founder of the Maliki school of thought. When I say the school of thought, we're talking about a legal school of thought of law. Not a school of thought. When we talk about the Ja'fari school of thought, we're talking about a legal school of thought, a theological school of thought as well. When we talk about the Maliki school of thought, we're only talking about the legal aspect of it. When it comes to fiqh, when it comes to jurisprudence, when it comes to the day-to-day rulings. He was the founder of this school of thought, which of course continues all the way up to today. Now, he says, I used to go to the classes and the sessions of Malik ibn Anas, but I heard that Ja'far ibn Muhammad is returning to Medina. And we know that Ja'far ibn Muhammad, the sixth Imam, he used to live in Medina, but there were instances where he would travel from Medina to other cities. In some instances to Kufa, in some instances to Mecca for the pilgrimage that he used to do as well. So he says, I found out that Ja'far ibn Muhammad is coming back. When I heard that he is coming back, I made the decision that I would approach him and that I would ask him to be my teacher. So he says, I approached Ja'far ibn Muhammad and I asked him, I said, I've asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you could teach me a little bit of your knowledge. The sixth Imam responded to him in a unique manner. He said, Inni rajulun matlub. He said, listen, I am an individual who is being monitored every second. Mansur al-Dawaniqi, these other khulafa, Safar, whoever was in charge at that time, they are all monitoring me. So if you come and you learn from me, they're going to monitor you. This is going to pressure you. Also, I am a man of spirituality. I have my ibadat. I have my acts of worship. Allow me to learn. Allow me to be busy with these acts of worship that I do. Go back to the class of Malik ibn Anas and go and learn from him. So Unwan al-Basri, essentially he's rejected. He feels very rejected. He comes home and he has so much grief in his heart. He says, I went to the haram of the Prophet and I prayed there. The next day he says, I did the same thing. And as much as I was going to the haram of the Prophet or the grave of the Prophet, and I was asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the presence of the Prophet so that Ja'far ibn Muhammad would fulfill my request, he says, during this time, I was so infatuated with him, I could no longer continue to go to the classes of Malik ibn Anas. So at this point, it's either Ja'far ibn Muhammad for him or nothing. He's not willing to go anywhere else. He says, one day after I prayed Asr, I came to the house of Ja'far ibn Muhammad, knocked on the door. The khadim said, he's praying. I said, okay, no problem, I will wait. After a while, the khadim came back. I entered and I sat in front of Ja'far ibn Muhammad. And the Imam gave his salam to me. And he said, what is your kunya? What should I call you by? He said, Abu Abdullah. And he prayed for me that may Allah actualize this kunya for you. Okay. Then, of course, Unwan al-Basri, he is going to mention the request that he has. Ja'far ibn Muhammad said, okay, so what is it that you've come for this time? He said, I've come for the same request I made before. I have come and I've been praying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes your heart and makes your heart soft towards me, that you would be willing to teach me from the knowledge that you have. Okay. Then the sixth Imam, this is where we ended last time, and this is where we will continue. We find that the sixth Imam then raised his head, right? You know, Unwan al-Basri says the sixth Imam then raised his head. And then he said this. He said, Ya Unwan, laysa al-ilmu bit-ta'allum. He said, listen, knowledge is not gained through learning. So what Ja'far ibn Muhammad was doing, what the sixth Imam was doing, he was trying to change the perspective of Unwan as it relates to knowledge. Unwan thought that knowledge is what you write down, what you take notes of, when you listen to lectures, and all of these are really part of knowledge. But knowledge is not true knowledge until it seeps into your heart, until it makes its way and makes a nest in your heart and settles down in your heart. The sixth Imam told him, لَيْسَ الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. He said, knowledge is not that thing that you go to classes and sessions that you learn. Knowledge is a light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He puts it in the heart of whoever He wants to guide. Okay, this is essentially where we ended last week, and we stopped and paused so that we could continue the discussion this week. This line that the sixth Imam is using is in fact also a line that you find in the words of the Prophet as well. Famous hadith from the Prophet is narrated in which he says, Al-ilmu nurun yaghdifuhu Allahu fi qalbi man yasha. He says knowledge is a light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throws in the heart of whoever He wishes. In other words, you can learn all you want to learn, right? You can gain all the knowledge that you want to gain, but true knowledge, when it seeps into your heart, that comes from you having a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placing the light of that knowledge in your heart. And it's interesting because in our ahadith, when knowledge really seeps into the character of an individual, when it truly becomes part of who they are, really goes into their heart instead of just remaining in their mind and in their head, you find certain characteristics of this individual is supposed to change. And if you don't find the characteristics of this individual changing, then that means the knowledge has not truly seeped into this individual. The first of all of these characteristics is humility, is humbleness. When I come across somebody, he might be a speaker, he might be a lecturer, it doesn't matter. But if he doesn't have humility, if he is not humble, this person does not carry true knowledge. In my words, this person carries a lot of information, doesn't carry a lot of knowledge. There's a difference between the two. Knowledge is when the information you have seeps into who you are and becomes part of who you are. It changes your akhlaq. It changes the way you go about things. This individual, if he does not have humility, if he does not have humbleness, then the knowledge has not truly made it into its heart, into his heart. In the verses of the Quran, we also read of another characteristic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. That only those servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are fearful of Him who have knowledge. This is real knowledge. This is not the knowledge that you just gain through your head, through your intellect. No, this is the knowledge that comes through the intellect and makes its way into the heart. Second characteristic, does this individual fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does it stop him when he wants to commit a sin or not? If it doesn't, then the knowledge is not real knowledge. Third characteristic that you also find in our hadith is being able to get along with people, being patient with people. This is sometimes referred to in our hadith as mudaratun nas, to get along with people, right? To be okay with people. And sometimes it's referred to in our hadith as hilm, which is a type of patience. If this person does not carry this patience, this knowledge is not worth anything in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To the extent that these characteristics start to show themselves in the character of an individual, that's when the knowledge has now become true knowledge. Okay, so then the Imam told him, he said, listen, if you want knowledge, this is the next line of the hadith, فَإِذَا أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمِ, if you want true knowledge, فَاتْلُبْ أَوَّلًا فِي نَفْسِكَ حَقِيقَةَ الْعُبُودِيَّةِ. He said, before you try to go and learn, the first thing you have to do is that you have to find within yourself and search within yourself for what? For the truth of humility and servitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to have a sense of serving and being submissive, submitting yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says you have to find this within yourself before you can go out there and try to gain this knowledge. And then he mentioned two more things. And then Unwan al-Basri is going to ask a question that will open up the rest of the discussion for us. So then he said this. First, you have to find true servitude within you. That may not seem very clear to us. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Then he said, وَاتْلُبِ الْعِلْمَ بِاسْتِعْمَالِهِ, and demand knowledge by acting upon knowledge, by utilizing the knowledge that you have, which is also what our scholars say, that whatever you know you're supposed to do it, act upon it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will add to your knowledge. He will teach you the things that you do not know. That's number 2. وَاتْلُبِ الْعِلْمَ بِاسْتِعْمَالِهِ. Number 3, وَاسْتَفْهِمِ اللَّهِ يُفْهِمَكِ. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you an understanding of knowledge, and He will do so. He will help you understand that knowledge. Okay, out of these 3 things, 2 of them seem pretty clear to Unwan al-Basri. So he's not going to ask about those 2. He's going to ask about number 1. Ja'far ibn Muhammad said, before I gain knowledge, I have to gain true servitude. I have to find true servitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inside of myself. So then he asked the Imam this question. He said, tell me, Ya Aba Abdullah, ma haqiqatul ubudiyya? What is this true servitude that you're talking about? Can you explain what this means? What does it mean when someone is truly submitting himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now the Imam is going to explain what true servitude means. And all of us can take all 3 of these principles, apply it to our own lives, and observe and see how much do we act upon these 3 principles. And based on this, we can gauge how far or close we are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of showing our servitude and our humility towards Him. The Imam said this. He said, number 1, أن لا يرى العبد لنفسه فيما خوله الله ملكا. He said, number 1 is that a servant should never see any ownership for himself in the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to him. And the hadith continues. He says, because if it's like this, then what is going to happen is that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to take from the wealth, wants to take from the things that this individual owns, this servant will be completely fine with it, because technically he does not see any ownership for himself. With regards to the things that people say he owns, he doesn't see any of his own ownership. Because of that, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to take a part of it, it's a financial duty that he has to fulfill, he will not have a problem with it. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to give some of his wealth away, he doesn't have a problem, because he doesn't feel like this wealth is his to begin with. Okay, that's number 1. We're going to discuss this a little bit and open it up and elaborate on it in just a second. But number 1 is that he does not see any ownership for himself in those things that belong to him. Number 2, وَلَا يُدَبِّرُ الْعَبْدُ لِنَفْسِهِ تَدْبِيرًا. In that a servant, he doesn't sit there and plan for himself. Now, of course, planning is important, but what is meant by this line is that when he plans, he doesn't make it up in his mind that this is what's going to happen, and if anything else happens, it's a problem. No, he leaves it up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He plans, but then he allows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do the planning as well. That's number 2. We will elaborate on that in just a second. And then number 3, and the last element that makes true servitude, the Imam says, very beautiful lines, وَجُمْلَةَ إِشْتِغَالِهِ فِيمَا أَمَرَهُ تَعَالَى بِهِ. In that most of the time, most of his effort, most of his mental energy is spent in acting upon those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him. Some people, you will see, it's as if they have nothing to do in life, and because they have nothing to do in life, they end up, dealing with a bunch of negative attributes that they have. Why? Because they're not busy thinking how they are to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Imam explains, he says, the one who is busy thinking and planning how he can obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the different duties that he has in front of him, praying, fasting, all of these things. And we'll talk about this more in detail later on. While he is thinking about all of these things, this person, he will not have time to worry about what other people are doing. He will not have time to go and backbite about other people. He will not have time to sit there and focus on the negative attributes and the flaws of other people. This person doesn't have this type of time. He's too busy worrying about himself. These three elements are what make up true servitude, according to the hadith of the Imam. Now let's open these up a little bit more. It's interesting because the first one the Imam mentioned is that this individual, this servant, he never sees any ownership for himself with regards to the things that belong to him. Even though things belong to him, his house, his car, his body, his own life, he does not see himself as owning these things. Okay, this concept actually has a lot of literature surrounded around it, meaning that when you go to Quran and Hadith, you find a lot of talk about this idea that the human being doesn't really own anything, even though these societies that we live in, they do teach us, and they should, that there are certain things that you own and certain things that you do not own. That's how society works. If I came to you and I said, based on the hadith of Unwan al-Basri, you don't own anything, so from now on, anything you make, you have to send it into my bank account, you're not going to like that anymore. You won't even listen to the lectures anymore, right? Because that's not how society works. If you want society to work, you have to have boundaries. You have to have the concept of ownership. Okay, so in Islam we have that. But when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do you have a concept of ownership? No. The way Quran has made this clear, the way Quran reminds the human being that technically he doesn't own anything that he is using right now, is through the concept of inheritance. When I say inheritance, I'm not talking about how you, when someone dies, God forbid, now, their children inherit the things that they had. No, not in that particular sense. That's part of our fiqh and that's part of our jurisprudence. No, the Quran actually says that everything that we have is inheritance. What does that mean? See, normally, when we think about the wealth that people have, even when you're talking about people who are extremely wealthy, there is two categories to their wealth, if you think about it. There is the category that we normally give them a lot of credit for. There's a category that we sit there and we say, this is actually their money. And then there is the category that we don't really give someone credit for having. And that category is the wealth that they did not work hard to gain. It's not really coming from them. It's money or wealth or possessions that they are inheriting from the previous generation. When someone dies, they pass on their inheritance. They pass on their possessions to the next generation. For the next generation, the amount of money and wealth and possessions that they get from the previous generation, technically, even amongst ourselves, we don't look at that amount of their wealth the same as we do when it comes to the other category of their wealth that they worked hard for, that they gained on their own. Even in our minds, when we look at that money that they gained with their own hard work, we say this is theirs. But when it comes to the inheritance, although we acknowledge it's theirs, but what we're really thinking in the back of the mind, in the back of our mind, what we would be saying is, this is not your money, this is your father's money. This is your mother's money. Now, of course, from legal perspectives, it counts as their money. But at the back of the mind, because it's inheritance, we say what? We say, this is not really your money. And therefore, someone comes to you and says, so-and-so is extremely wealthy. And then you look at their wealth and you find out 80% of their wealth comes from what? Comes from inheritance. You don't give that person that much credit anymore, right? Say, oh, well, this person inherited a lot of his money. As if to say a lot of this money is technically not even his, although for practical purposes, he has access to it. But from your perspective even, you differentiate between the two of these. In Islam and in Quran and Hadith, what you find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us all of our wealth is inheritance. Okay, hopefully this point will click for you, because we said that when we look at the inheritance portion of someone's wealth, we don't technically consider it theirs. We say, no, this is someone else's work. Quran and Hadith says, listen, all of your wealth is inheritance. What does that mean? That means all of your wealth, someone else is working for it. Yes, we work for our wealth. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gets things set up in such a way where this wealth comes our way. And because of that, Quran, in the verses of the Quran we read, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, listen,
Give from your wealth for charity, from the same wealth that you guys are receiving from the previous generations. What is this trying to tell you? It's trying to tell you and me that even though legally that is your wealth, technically you inherited it from somebody else. Technically, it's not even your wealth. The Quran is telling you and me, look at all of your wealth the way you look at inheritance today. Because all of your wealth belonged to someone else at the end of the day, and now it's in your hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did the work for it. So you can't take credit for your money in this sense that you have a sense of ownership over the money that you have in your hands. No, all of it is inheritance. Now, some of it, it's very clear how it came to you from the previous generation. Someone died in the family and this money came your way. Some of it, no, you worked. But technically, when you work and the money goes from the employer to the employee, what does that mean? That means money is going from one person to another person. Very similar to inheritance. You go into a house. Well, this used to be someone else's house. And now you're in this house. Technically, you have inherited this house. That's why in the verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us. He says, listen, do not feel arrogant. You guys are living in the same houses of people who came before you. There were people who lived in the same house that you're living in today. And if you think about this, most of the houses that we live in nowadays, in Dallas or, across America, if you think about it, most of them are built 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Even if you say the 2000s, what does that mean? That means we're living in houses that other people have lived in before, 99% of the time. And that means there were actual people who were living here. A lot of them may not even be around anymore. So what does that mean? You inherited that house from them. So the Quran says all of your wealth is inheritance. And the moment all of your wealth becomes inheritance, what does that mean? That means technically it's not yours. Technically it is all for the one who did the work for it, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Now, where do we find this in the verses of the Quran? This is Surah Al-Hadid, verse number 7. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, آمنوا بالله ورسوله وأنفقوا مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيه. Believe in Allah and His Prophet and give from that wealth that He had you inherit, that He made you a khalifa in. That means that it was someone else's before you came after them. It means you inherited it from them. What inheritance? Shaykh, I didn't receive any inheritance. Some people are very upset about this sometimes. Well, I didn't get any inheritance. No, the money you get from your employer, the Quran is saying that is also inheritance. That was someone else's before. Now it's yours. So it was inheritance. Therefore, you don't have ownership over this when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, in the verses of the Quran, in Surah Al-Dukhan, we read this as well. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing those moments when Fir'aun and his people, they were leaving their palaces and they were heading out. And they were heading out because they had heard that Musa and his people had left and they were moving ahead of them, moving towards the sea that Musa alayhi salam was going to split open. And Fir'aun, he gathered his people and he said, Inna ha'ula'i lashirdimatun qalilun. This is a small group of people. We will defeat them. They came out of Egypt. And the Quran is describing in Surah Al-Dukhan how these guys were coming out. It says this, Kam taraku min jannatin wa uyun. How many gardens and ranches were they leaving behind? وَزُرُوعٍ وَمَقَامٍ كَرِيمٍ. And this lofty status of theirs, this luxurious life that they had. وَنَعْمَةٍ كَانُوا فِيهَا فَاكِهِينَ. And all of these blessings that they had, that they used to take pleasure in. They were leaving all of this. They didn't know it, because they didn't know this was the last time that they would be heading out of Egypt. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew this, but they didn't know it. And then verse 28 says this, كَذَلِكَ وَأَوْرَثْنَاهَا قَوْمًا آخَرِينَ. Just like that, we took all of this and we gave it as inheritance to the next group of people. What does that mean? That means everything that we have is inheritance in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moving on, this was the first principle, that a servant should never see ownership for the things that belongs to him, because from the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from his perspective, everything that we have is his. Number 2 was that a servant will not plan for himself. What does this mean? Inshallah, next Thursday we'll have the lecture The Thursday after that, we'll discuss this. What does it mean when we say that a servant is not supposed to plan for himself? Does it mean that I'm supposed to sit there and not worry about the hopes and dreams that I have? And then beyond this, in Quran and Hadith, what you read is that you have these far-fetched hopes and dreams that are also seen in a negative light. That the Prophet said, Amal, having these hopes and dreams, these are negative things. What is Quran and Hadith talking about when they see hopes and dreams in a negative light? So we'll talk about that as well. And we'll also talk about how the Ahlul Bayt went about this. Because if you think about it, the Ahlul Bayt were very, very special. On one hand, they were masters of planning things strategically. At the same hand, they had the servitude, right? They would submit themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to a degree that if things did not go the way they were planned, that they would be completely fine with it. If you think about it, these are two opposites of one another. What examples do we have from the life of the Ahlul Bayt where you see two sides or these two opposites at work at the same time? That they will plan strategically for something, and then at the same time something will go terribly wrong, even though they had planned for it, and they are completely fine with it. Masters of planning, and at the same time masters of submitting themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll talk about how the Ahlul Bayt, when it came to the smallest things that were going to hurt their Shia, when it came to the smallest things that were going to hurt their followers, they would plan strategically in such a way that the Khalifa of their time was not able to tell what they were doing. And then at the same time, we'll go through stories from the prophets and the imams where they had decided who the next prophet and who the next imam should be in their heart. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would choose another person as the next prophet or the next imam, they used to say, Aradna amran, we wanted something, wa arad Allahu amran ghayrahu, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided something else. And just like that, they were fine with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would decide for their lives. Inshallah, the continuation of Hadith Unwan al-Basri, we will leave to the next Thursday. As I mentioned, for those who are not with us at the very beginning of the lecture, this coming Thursday, inshallah, we're honored to, inshallah, benefit from the lecture of Sayyid Asad Jafri from Toronto, who is not a stranger at all to the Dallas community. Inshallah, for the birthday of our beloved 8th Imam, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, we will be benefiting from his talk Thursday at 8 p.m. Inshallah. With that, inshallah, I'll bring the talk to an end. Let us take a moment to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He places us amongst the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of our brothers and sisters who are in difficulty, in pain, in agony, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees them from difficulty, from pain. Our brothers and sisters in Yemen, if any of us can, inshallah, donate to the funds that are taking place for Yemen, please do so. It's the type of famine, the type of news that we hear is very, very painful. It's very difficult to imagine even. So now's the time to put our hands in our pockets and to donate, inshallah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He hastens the return of our beloved 12th Imam. Bin Nabi wa alih, rahimallahu man qara al-fatihata ma'as salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Please recite Surah Fatiha while I bring up the Kumyal. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay wa bi quwwatika allati kaharta biha kulla shay wa khazalaha kullu shay wa zallalaha kullu shay wa bi jabarutika allati ghalabta biha kulla shay وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل اسم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النكام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لكل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلحمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بكسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عزم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فاضح من البلاء أكلتا، وكم من إيثار وكيتا، وكم من مكروه دفعتا، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرتا. اللهم عزم بلائي وأفرت بي سوء حالي، وكسرت بي أعمالي، وكدأت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفئي بعد أمالي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها، ومثالي يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أحوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستكيلا، مستغفرا منيبا، مكرا مذعنا مؤترفا. لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري، غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري، وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وصاكي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، وركة جلدي ودكة عزمي، يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي. هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا ربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيئ من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من أويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها وعلى قلوب طرفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمار حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سأت إلى أوطان تأبتك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مزئنة ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكسور يسير بقاؤه كثير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحكير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما من حائز الجوع أبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وحبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي أفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزجن عليك بين أهلها زجيج العاملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يزج إليك زجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يهلكه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا أم كيف يتكلكل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتكه منها فتتركه فيها هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وكزيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مكرا ولا مقاما لكنك تكدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجلى ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالكزية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أو خفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت ركيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستروه يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك ركي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا أليما بزري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك مأمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه مأولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جوارحي واشد على العزيمة جوانحي وحبلي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بالسوء فأرده ومن قادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نسيبا عندك واقربهم منزلة منك وخسهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجود لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأكلني أسرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك كزيد على عبادك بإبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تعتأ من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وصلاحه البكاء يا سابق النعم يا دافع النكم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يؤلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا صلوات اللهم صل